Hey Trinity Youth. Today I'm going to start out with a question for you guys. Have you ever wanted something so badly you didn't know how you could live without it? I'm sure if you're watching this, something instantly comes to mind. Well, for me, there are many normal things I want, but when I was little, about 3, 4, 5, I don't remember the age, but hopefully no older than 5 because that's embarrassing. When I was little, I had trouble flushing the toilet. I would go to the bathroom and then I would just leave, and my mom would get mad at me because I kept forgetting to flush the toilet. I don't know why, it was just, I am a very forgetful person, but it was just something I needed to learn. It wasn't an automatic reflex like it is today. So my mom came up with this plan to teach me how to flush the toilet. So when I was that age, my grandparents used to have a house on the Jersey Shore, and there was this store with these seashells in them, and I thought they were the most beautiful things in the world. They were brightly colored. There were normal seashells, but like unique ones that you don't usually find on the Jersey Shore. There was beautiful jewelry and like plastic ones. And so I saw this beautiful periwinkle blue plastic clamshell that would open and close, and I thought it was the most beautiful thing ever, and I begged my parents for it. I wanted it desperately, and so my mom was like, okay, if you can flush the toilet for 30 days straight, then you can have this seashell. And so she made this little chart for me. It was a month long, had 30 days on it, and she put it next to the toilet, and I remember, I was little, 3, 4, 5, whatever, I remember crossing off those X's every day for 30 days so that I could get that blue seashell, and it worked. And I got the blue seashell, and that is why I am able to flush the toilet today, because my mom taught me when I was really little, and she used that blue shell as motivation. So that's a ridiculous story, but often we find ourselves in everyday lives, we find ourselves wanting something so badly we don't know how we can live without it. And I'm not talking about blue seashells. I'm not even talking about the latest iPhone or the latest trendy new clothes. I'm talking about the desires and longings we have for things that are valuable and good for our lives. So for example, when I think of you guys, your age, teenagers, these are some of the things that I think of that maybe come up for you that you desire so desperately. So one, maybe it's a spot on the sports team, not just any sport, but a sport that you've been playing for years, a sport that you love, a sport that you want to excel in and maybe play in college. And so you really want to get onto the varsity team or start out on the freshman team in high school so that you can continue your path in volleyball or football or whatever it is. Maybe it's to get into a really good college. I mean, college is important, especially around here. Where you go says a lot to people around here, and maybe your dream has been to go to this one school, whether it's Harvard or whether it's a school out on the West Coast or whatever. Like maybe that has been your dream since you were little, and you are so excited and so terrified about applying and not getting in. Or maybe you really want to be in a relationship. You really want a boyfriend or girlfriend that you can spend time with and feel loved by. Or maybe it's something more serious. Maybe your family is broken in parts, and maybe you've just been praying and praying and praying that God will heal your family, heal the relationships in your family so that there's no fighting and no tension, and that your parents love you the way that they're supposed to. Or maybe you're lonely and you're just looking for a best friend, or you're looking for a good group of friends that you can hang out with on the weekend and do stuff with and feel like you belong. Whatever it is, we all have something that we are longing for, that we deeply desire. Maybe not now, maybe you feel okay now, but at some point in your life, you're probably going to find yourself longing for something good, but that you don't have yet. Now, these are good desires, but sometimes when we're longing for something, we don't have it, it can feel like God is ignoring us or not answering our prayers, and that can be a really tough spot to be in. So what do we do when we're in that position? Because it's a normal thing for Christians to go through. It's a normal thing for people to go through. So what do we do? How do we live in that position? So I'm going to read this story from 1 Samuel. We have been talking about, we just started a series called Brave Women of the Bible, and we've picked some stories of women in the Bible. There are some awesome stories. Some of my favorite stories are about women in this book. But we've picked a few that we thought would apply well to your lives and could also teach us about what it means to be brave. And so today I want to talk about the story of Hannah in 1 Samuel verses 1 through 20. So 1 Samuel, the story starts out, put it on the screen for you guys. There was a certain man of Ramathaim Zophim of the hill country of Ephraim. Get ready, this passage has a lot of big words in it. Whose name was Elkanah, the son of Jeroham, son of Elihu, son of Tohu, son of Zuph, an Ephrathite. He had 2 wives, Elkanah. The name of the one was Hannah, and the name of the other Peninnah. And Peninnah had children, but Hannah had no children. Now this man used to go up year by year from his city to worship and to sacrifice to the Lord of hosts at Shiloh, where the 2 sons of Eli, Hophni, and Phinehas were priests of the Lord. On the day when Elkanah sacrificed, he would give portions to Peninnah his wife and to all her sons and daughters. But to Hannah he gave a double portion because he loved her, though the Lord had closed her womb. And her rival used to provoke her grievously to irritate her because the Lord had closed her womb. So it went on year by year. As often as she went up to the house of the Lord, she used to provoke her. Therefore Hannah wept and would not eat. And Elkanah, her husband, said to her, Hannah, why do you weep? And why do you not eat? And why is your heart sad? Am I not more to you than 10 sons? So let me just pause there because I want to talk about 3 of our main characters before we read the rest of the story. So we've got 3 people that we've read about. We've got Hannah, we've got Peninnah, and we've got Elkanah. I could be butchering those names, all those names except Hannah, but none of you know that. So Hannah, Peninnah, Elkanah. Hannah, she is the main character of our story, and her deepest desire is to have a child, but for some reason she is not able to. She is barren. So like her deepest desire is to have a child, just like your deepest desire might be to have friends, to have a good group of friends, or to get on the sports team, or to go to Harvard, or whatever. Hannah is longing for a child. So then we have Peninnah, who is the other wife of Elkanah. So Hannah's co-wife, sister wife, whatever you want to say. And she is like the friend who has the thing we want the most. She is like the person that has the life that we want, the rival that makes us jealous, that makes us compare ourselves and make us go, why does she or he have what I so desperately desire? And for Hannah, this friend lives in the same house, the same tent, whatever, as her. And so she sees her every day. She sees her co-wife, Elkanah's other wife, playing with her children, raising sons, raising daughters. And Hannah it's a living reminder every day of what Hannah does not have. So that's Peninnah. And then we have Elkanah, the husband, who loves Hannah, who very much loves her and takes care of her. And it's sad for her that she doesn't have children, but is like the well-meaning friend that tries to make things better, but doesn't really get at the heart of the problem. He says, am I not enough for you? Am I more than 10 sons to you? And that doesn't, of course, it's great that he loves her, but that doesn't get at the root of Hannah's despair. You see, there's some cultural background to this. Elkanah didn't quite get it because his love was important, but culturally, Hannah had no guarantee of her future and her security without any male heirs to take care of her if Elkanah were to die. Now, this is cultural, but that's just how it worked then. If Hannah were to become a widow with no sons, she was completely at the mercy of Peninnah, her rival, and her son's goodwill to take care of her. Otherwise, she had no one. And so it was scary. It was not just that she wanted a child, she was scared. She was scared for her future. So let's read on the rest of the story, verses 9 through 20, and see what happens to Hannah. As she continued praying before the Lord, skipped a part, sorry. After they had eaten and drunk in Shiloh, Hannah rose. Now Eli the priest was sitting on the seat beside the doorpost of the temple of the Lord. She was deeply distressed and prayed to the Lord and wept bitterly. And she vowed a vow and said, O Lord of hosts, if you will indeed look on the affliction of your servant and remember me and not forget your servant, but will give to your servant a son, then I will give him to the Lord all the days of his life, and no razor shall touch his head. As she continued praying before the Lord, Eli observed her mouth. Hannah was speaking in her heart, only her lips moved, and her voice was not heard. Therefore Eli took her to be a drunken woman. And Eli said to her, How long will you go on being drunk? Put your wine away from you. But Hannah answered, No, my Lord, I am a woman troubled in spirit. I have drunk neither wine nor strong drink, but I have been pouring out my soul before the Lord. Do not regard your servant as a worthless woman, for all along I have been speaking out of my great anxiety and vexation. Then Eli answered, Go in peace, and the God of Israel grant your petition that you have made to him. And she said, Let your servant find favor in your eyes. Then the woman went her way and ate, and her face was no longer sad. They rose early in the morning and worshiped before the Lord. Then they went back to their house at Ramah. And Elkanah knew Hannah, his wife, and the Lord remembered her. And in due time Hannah conceived and bore a son, and she called his name Samuel. For she said, I have asked for him from the Lord. So even though Hannah went for years without having a child, she still kept going back to God. She didn't give up on him, and she showed bravery by remaining faithful to God even in the midst of disappointment. Now, in this story, there's three things I pull out from this story that can speak to what does it look like to wait? What does it look like to deeply desire something good, but to not have it yet and to trust God in the waiting? So there's a few things I would just encourage you guys with. The first is God doesn't always give us what we want, at least not right away. And there's a few reasons for that. It may just not be the right time. It may not be what you think you need. Maybe there's something that you need more, or that thing you think you need, the thing you think you want, desire actually isn't a good thing for you. And so maybe God has something better for you. So that could be, if you're not ready, that could be, or if it's not the right time, it could be you're just not ready for a relationship. If you really want to go to this college, it may not be the right college for you. Same thing, like God has something better for you. Like if you want to go play the sport, get on a varsity, like a sports team or the varsity team or a club or whatever, like God may have something better for you. And we don't always know the answer. Sometimes there isn't an answer. But those sometimes are reasons why God doesn't give us what we want right away, because he has something better for us, or he needs to work in us before he gives us this good gift that we desire. And actually what's interesting, the story of Hannah, her son Samuel, the book is literally, 1 and 2 Samuel is literally named after him, because he became such an important part of Israel's history, of starting Israel's history. Like he anointed the first king of Israel. He chose David. God inspired Samuel to choose David to be the second king of Israel. David, who wrote the book of Songs, who was remembered as the greatest king of Israel in the Bible. And so maybe it took so long for Hannah to have her son Samuel because it wasn't time for him to be born. Maybe that's why it took so long for her to have children, and is there was a point in time that God knew Samuel needed to be born, and it just wasn't time for that to happen. And then also maybe if she hadn't been barren, maybe if she had more children, maybe she wouldn't have gotten to the place where she was willing to give Samuel up to serve the Lord, which she did when Samuel was a young boy and was so important for the history of Israel. So you see, we don't always know what's going on behind the scenes. We don't know what kind of work God is doing and what his long-term plan is. And often it's better than we expect. Often he's doing things, his plan is better for us than what we thought we wanted. So that's the first one. God doesn't always give us what we want, at least not right away. Second, trust God in the waiting. Those desires you have to be loved, to have a community, to get an education, those are great desires. And God loves you, and Jesus, he says, Jesus says God's a good father, and he desires to give his children good gifts. So I encourage you, just like Hannah did, take your pain to God. Trust him in the waiting. Talk to him. And then often in the waiting, God does the best work in your life. He teaches you patience. He teaches you to trust him. He grows you in ways that maybe make you more ready for the thing you really want than you were before. Often in the waiting, God does the best work in your life. So trust God in the waiting. Lean on him. Trust that he's going to take care of you. And then the last thing, let God fill your desires, both with his presence and in other ways. In the absence of what you want, God can give you what you need, which is himself. Ultimately, these things that you desire, they are good. And they are gifts that God can give us, and they can fill a need. We do have a need to be loved by a community, to be loved by others. It's good to go and get an education and whatever else I mentioned, but ultimately those things are temporary, and God is eternal. And God is what we truly need, a relationship with him, to feel loved by him, to lean on him, to know him. That is what we truly, truly need. And it's often in the absence of what we want that we are driven to God to get what we need. So in conclusion, I just encourage you guys to be brave by trusting God with your hopes and dreams. It's hard and it's scary to let go, because I imagine it like this. Here's your hopes and dreams. Here's my hopes and dreams. And what we want to do is we want to do this. We want to hold on tightly to it. We want to strive. We want to plan. We want to cry. We want to plot out how we can get those. And we want to do this and hold on to them tightly. But it's hard to go to God, and it's brave to go to God and say, God, I trust you with my future. I trust you with my desires. I trust you with my hopes and my dreams. Help me in the waiting. Help me to follow you. And God, take care of me. So that's what I'll end with, is just be brave and trust God to bless you and sustain you no matter what in the waiting.